How's it going, Rogues Gallery, and welcome to another card game video. Today, we are talking about something that has been on my mind ever since I made that best card games of 2021 video. It has really got me thinking, especially over the last couple weeks and months as the new Flesh and Blood set Monarch has launched, as I've checked out new games like MetaZoo and Gate Ruler, and all of these thoughts basically culminate into a singular thing, and it's a question, and that question is, are we in a card game renaissance right now? Because I think we just might be. And when I say the words card game, I don't mean every single card game imaginable. I specifically mean collectible card games, trading card games, and CCGs. TCGs, CCGs. I do not mean digital card games, and I don't mean like LCGs and expandable card games and that kind of stuff. Though I think there is a really good market for that kind of stuff, especially single player and co-op stuff. And that's kind of a maybe a topic for another video, but I do strongly believe that the market and the attitudes are ripe for single player and co-op basically tabletop games. And that applies to like CCGs, LCGs, expandable card games, all of that kind of stuff. But that is not the topic of today's video. The topic of today's video is, are we in a card game renaissance? And this is a topic that I don't exactly have a solid answer to. I obviously have lots of opinions on this, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. But I want to make this into kind of like an open discussion, right? I want your opinion. So if you have an opinion on this, and I'm sure a lot of you out there will have opinions on this, let me know in the comment section down below. I'm very interested to see what your opinions are. Because it's a little spicy, right? It's a little spicy. I feel like the old TCG guard, the old guard for TCG, is maybe waning a little bit, right? Maybe their power is not what it used to be, and there's room now for some smaller, more agile games to kind of like sneak their way into the marketplace and establish themselves as something that can not just stand the test of time, but something that can be here for a little while at least. Very few things actually stand the test of time. Even things that we think about that have been around for a little while, have only been around for a little while, right? Very few companies actually stay in business for a really long time. Most companies actually fail, even really big ones. Think about something like Blockbuster, for example. Folks back in the 90s couldn't imagine that just going out of business and getting crushed by this tiny little upstart Netflix. So that's something that I like to think about a lot, actually. And I like to attribute that, or rather think about that in regards to trading card games. And I really do think that the time is ripe. And so why do I think that, right? So it's no secret that 2021, and also like 2020, maybe a year before that too, the collectible market has started to explode, right? There is huge upward trends in the collectible market for not just trading card games, but just collectibles in general. You know, sports cards are kind of making a resurgence. And basically what that means is that people are willing to spend their money on collectibles, right? People are willing to spend their money on collectibles, things that they really like, things that have value. And this is not just from a investor side of things, not just from a collector side of things, though this collectible market boom is definitely, you know, drawn by that kind of stuff, but it's also drawn by, like, you know, it's nostalgia and that kind of stuff. People loved, you know, baseball cards, basketball cards, Pokemon cards as a kid, and those are the kind of things that are exploding right now. And I believe because of that renewed interest in collectibles and the collectible market in general, there's enough attention and enough money and enough people willing to spend that money and attention on new stuff, right? And I see it all the time. You know, as a card game channel who talks about a lot of trading card games, you know, Red Zone Rogue here mostly focuses on Flesh and Blood, and Flesh and Blood is going to be one of the main topics of today's video because I think it has the most to gain from this. And this Flesh and Blood in general is kind of what got me thinking about this. But basically, the bottom line is, in regards to the market being hot for collectibles, is there's enough room, right? Before, people would say, oh, there's not enough room for card games or new card games to get in. But I think that's wrong now. I think there is room. And it's not just Flesh and Blood. There's MetaZoo coming in, there's Gate Ruler coming in, there's the Digimon card game that's exploding. It's not just the big three. So the big three, if you didn't know, the big three are Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! And they've kind of had not exactly a monopoly, but they've had like a majority influence on the collectible, card game market, on the TCG market. And they've been called the big three because it's thought that they're impossible to topple. What game could possibly topple them? Well, themselves. They can topple themselves. And this is going to be the case for Magic the Gathering in particular, though I know there are some dissenters in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan base and some dissenters in the Pokemon fan base, because when you think about Pokemon, it's a game where it's mostly a collectible. I know people play the game, I know there's some people who love the tournament scene, but it's mostly a collectible. And what Pokemon cards are the most collectible? The old cards, right? They're not the new cards, they're not like the new cards, they're the old cards. And that nostalgia is actually being picked up by these new card games, right? So you're probably thinking like, how does a new card game capitalize on nostalgia? Well, these new card games are doing things that those old card games used to do that they don't do anymore. So, for example, or they're trying to capture that spirit, right? They're trying to capture that passion and spirit that those card games originally used to have. So, an example of this is MetaZoo here, and MetaZoo is trying to capture that Ken Sugimori old school Pokemon art style with the old school Pokemon foiling, but without trying to be, super expensive. It is super expensive right now because the market, like I said, is super hot right now, but the MetaZoo company, MetaZoo Games, they have a focus and a commitment to keeping their products available to everyone, because that's kind of like one of the reasons for the game, one of the raison d'etres of the game, to be available and affordable to everyone. And it's kind of a reaction to Pokemon right now and how expensive and crazy Pokemon is. And so now we're gonna get to the meat of this video and what I really want to talk about, and that's Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, and Flesh and Blood, right? How are these two things connected? Because Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro are basically the same thing at this point, right? They're basically the same thing, but how are they connected to Flesh and Blood? So if you don't know, if you're watching this video, from the ether out there on the internet, if you're watching this video, you don't know about Flesh and Blood. Flesh and Blood is an indie trading card game from New Zealand. It came out in 2019, and one of their mottos is, it's the new classic TCG. It's the new classic card game, and they're emulating that in almost every way you can think of, right? Not just of the look and the feel. They are not copying any game mechanics. It's a wholly unique experience. And they also have a focus on playing in the Flesh and Blood, which is kind of why it's called Flesh and Blood. And because of that, they're also not focusing on the other aspects, right, of modern card games. They're not focusing on digital. They are not going to have a digital client, and they want to focus on local game stores. Only people who have a brick and mortar local game store are actually able to sell sealed Flesh and Blood product, right? So they're not catering to Amazon. They're not catering to Walmart and Target. That's another thing. They don't want to sell their game at big box stores like Walmart and Target. They really want to focus on the local game store. And it's this kind of stuff, right? The kind of stuff that Magic used to do, which no longer does, that it's getting people really excited. It's not just a sense of nostalgia, but that's definitely part of it, right? Personally, me, I've been playing Magic the Gathering since 1995. I started with 4th edition, and this is something that, it used to be the case, and I don't think it's really the case here. So why is that? Why am I saying this? Not only do I see new players into Flesh and Blood every single day, as a Flesh and Blood YouTube channel, I see new people every single day coming in from Magic the Gathering, and they all say the same things. They are sick of the greed that Wizards of the Coast has, and they're sick of the, avalanche of new products. They're sick of the, the lack of faith and support in the local game store. And they're also sick of other things that we're not going to talk about too, like, balancing and banning and all of that, this kind of stuff, So let's talk about some of those things real quick, right? So we're going to talk about the greed part. You're like, oh, how are they being greedy? Don't companies want to make money? Well, of course companies want to make money. Everyone wants to make money. That's just kind of how the world works. But there's something to be said for making money, but staying true to your passions and just being passionate about something rather than just being in it solely for the money. You know, not only in it solely for the money, that it comes across as very soulless. And that's what Magic the Gathering feels like to me and a lot of other players. It feels soulless, right? It feels like all the passion has been, you know, sucked out. It's all been sucked dry, and it's all about the bottom line, which is that big dollar. You know, Wizards of the Coast, it's no secret that they have, you know, record years in profits, but people are still leaving the game in droves. I've heard many stories from people out there, you know, some folks who are watching this video right now, some regulars of my channel who have literally sold their entire Magic the Gathering collection. These are people who have been collecting the game for over 10 years with like 3-4 digit dollar, you know, collections. And that's a big deal, right? When you have someone who's been playing your game for over 10 years and they are willing to just drop everything, sell it all, you know, $10,000 worth, even like, you know, people who just have like a couple commander decks, couple $1,000, they're willing to sell everything and jump in on this brand new game that's only been around for a couple years. That says a lot. And it says a lot about both that brand new game because, you know, they're giving you a reason to jump into it, because not only is the game excellent, but it's really good for collectors, and they support the local game store like I've been talking about. But it also reflects very poorly on the game that they're leaving. You know, there's a reason they're leaving it. If the game was doing really good and everything was like, you know, roses and chocolate, is that even a thing? Roses and chocolate? I don't know. You know, if everything was like super cool, then people wouldn't be leaving, right? And it's that kind of stuff, right? That kind of weakness and failure in these bigger companies that's making room for these new boys, right? Flesh and Blood, even stuff like MetaZoo in regards to like Pokemon and nostalgia, and then stuff like Gate Ruler. So Gate Ruler is its own thing. I'm not super into Gate Ruler. I mean, I like the game, right? I think it's cool. I've done some videos on the channel, but I don't know the fine details of it. But I do know that it's made by the guy who made Future Card Buddy Fight. And Future Card Buddy Fight has never been like a huge deal in the US. It's always been like a, you know, C-tier game, popular among the people who really like it. And there's, you know, there's people who really like it. And it was basically just cut short and canceled by Bushiroad. And if you don't know what Bushiroad is a Japanese card company. They make games like Vanguard and Buddy Fight and other stuff too, like Weiss Schwartz and a bunch of other stuff. But they're notorious for mishandling games. Some of my personal favorite games of all time, Dragoborn back here, was cut short, had an untimely demise at the hands of Bushiroad. And it's these companies like Bushiroad, like Wizards of the Coast, that, you know, you can only mess up so many times before people get fed up and seek out alternatives. And I think now is the time. Now is the time because the market is so hot. People are willing to spend their extra money on these collectible things. And there's the room. The space is open. These people can just slot themselves in. And I'm not saying that every one of these games is going to, you know, last 10 years, but I'm saying that there's room for it. You know, there's room and there's opportunity. An opportunity that has not been here for basically ever, right? Because, you know, if you remember the early 90s, I have all these dead card games, right? I love card games. I love dead card games from the 90s. You know, I know the history of this. Most card games don't last super long, and there's many reasons for that. Sometimes the game is mishandled. Sometimes it's just not the right time, and sometimes it's just not a good game. And now's the right time. And so if you can come out with a good game and you have a good business model and you have a smart company backing you and you know exactly what you're doing, like Legend Story Studios, the makers of Flesh, I said that weird, Legend Story Studios, the makers of Flesh and Blood, then this is the chance, right? Now's the time. The iron is hot, you know, strike hard, because I think there's so much to be gained from this. And, you know, all those people, all those companies, like, we're gonna go back to Hasbro again, Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast, that are making Magic the Gathering. Their focus, primarily, is a huge focus on digital. And, you know, that's gonna be popular, right? People love digital card games. I like digital card games. I really like Legends of Runeterra. I love the single player mode. Once again, harkening back to the beginning of this video, I love single player and like co-op kind of stuff. So I love the Legends of Runeterra single player stuff. Same with Hearthstone. I love the Hearthstone single player stuff too. But there's a company like Wizards of the Coast that used to exclusively do physical cards, is now kind of abandoning it, right? They're kind of abandoning it. They're getting rid of a lot of their support for local game stores, and instead are selling direct to customers with secret layers. They're going, straight to Amazon and bypassing distribution and local game stores, and they're going straight to digital, right? As much money as fast as possible, and that's the bottom line here. And people are going to be left to dry. People who love physical card games, people who love to support their local game stores, who have a good time at their local game stores, who meet their best friends at their local game stores, those are the people who are going to be left dry. And when you're left dry like that, there's nothing else to do but to either quit or seek other options. And, they're going to seek other options, and when they look over at the shelf and they see like this awesome display of Flesh and Blood just sitting on the shelf, they're going to be like, oh, maybe I should try this out. Maybe all those people out there talking about Flesh and Blood, maybe that Red Zone Rogue guy talking about Flesh and Blood, maybe he's onto something. Maybe there's something to be said here, and then people are going to try it out, and they're going to find that it's excellent, and they're not going to go back. Or maybe you can do both too. Maybe you can do both. I have not sold my Magic collection, for example, because I have all these card games, so it's not like I'm selling them all. But my point is there's now room for both. That's basically what we're getting at. It's not all doom and gloom, but the future is uncertain for Magic the Gathering and Wizards of the Coast. It'll probably make money. It'll probably stick around, but in what form, right? In what form is it going to stick around? Is it going to be all digital? Is it going to be all collector boosters now? So once again, for Magic the Gathering, if you don't know, a collector booster is a very, very premium and very, very expensive product. And the alternative would be like your draft booster, which you can actually play with and draft with. And you know what they're doing? They're printing less of those cheaper ones that you can play with and printing more of those really expensive premium ones. And they're also replacing the draft boosters with what they call set boosters, which have more flashy stuff in them, which is cool. I like the cool flashy stuff, but it means that they're not printing as much of the ones you can play with. And that's very telling. That's very telling. So if their thought is, we don't want to print these cards that you can play with, but we'd rather print these cards that you can just open and, sell or whatever, and not actually physically play with at your local game store. I mean, that's kind of telling about their overall mentality about things. This video is going to likely serve as a very interesting time capsule. 2021 is a hell of a time to be in the collectible card game market. 2021 is the year where Walmart and Target pulled all of their Pokemon, Magic, and Yu-Gi-Oh cards because people were fighting so hard to scalp them. That's insane. That's insane. That is unprecedented. That's like Black Friday every single day for the card game market. And these other companies that are new to the scene and, have their heads on right, they're going to take advantage of that kind of stuff. They're going to take advantage of that craze, and they're going to take advantage of the dissentment in the player base, at least in a certain portion of the player base, of these other major games. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you've watched all the way to the end, please comment down below, because most people are probably not going to watch all this way. And, I really appreciate it. If you'd like to support me directly, I do have a Patreon. Links in the description down below. I have tiers there where I give cards back to you. You'll have access to the Rogues Gallery, the official Red Zone Rogue Discord channel. We talk about video games, card games, all kinds of stuff down there. I'm also a content creator for Channel Fireball. So I do have a Channel Fireball affiliate link right here. So if you want to pick up Magic the Gathering or Flesh and Blood or maybe even some other stuff, you can use my Channel Fireball affiliate link. It goes and supports me, and I greatly appreciate it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. I greatly appreciate your time. Huge shout out to all of the new subscribers. Red Zone Rogue is growing faster than ever before, and I'm so thankful for it. You guys are all awesome and appreciate it. I appreciate you. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time for some more card game content. Have a good one all. We'll see you later.